I'm not going to make this very long. And usually when I say that I'm not going to make this very long, it ends up being very long. But I just had something to say. I looked up in Google, I basically asked Google, I said, who's the most powerful black man in the world? Or the most powerful black men in the world, right? This is the bullshit that they come up with. This shit from fucking, obviously it's CNBC, right? Like I was going to call it CSNBC because MSNBC, CNBC, Communist News Network, whatever. It doesn't even matter. It's all the same shit. But this is the list that they came up with. Now, keep in mind, the question I asked was who's the most powerful black men in the world? This is the goddamn list they come up with. 23 black leaders shaping history today. So naturally, Kamala Harris's face is on the front of it for whatever time she has left in office. Because what is this? This is summer 2023. We just started summer. This is what is this? June 30th. So that means that less than a year and a half from now, she's coming out of office. Biden ain't winning no goddamn re-election. The economy is a mess. Our, how should I say, global and national defense is a mess. He ain't winning no re-election. So anyway, this is what they come up with. Now, keep in mind, I asked who's the most powerful black men in the world. So they give me a list of a bunch of black women who are basically obscure. So we'll start with Kamala Harris, right? Now, for those of you who know I play chess, I use a picture of Kamala Harris smoking weed. And that's my chess avatar because I think it's just hilarious. And I call her President Harris, right? But anyway, I'm not even going to bother talking about it, so I'm just going to keep going because she ain't even going to be there that much longer, and she damn sure can't run for re-election. Like, it's not like Biden can come off the ticket and she can run for the... That would be the most embarrassing loss in the history ever since Hillary versus Trump. Because if, God forbid, Trump ran against her, she's losing, period. So anyway, Rosalind Brewer, Walgreens' next CEO, so that's one. Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett, lead scientist at Moderna for COVID-19. Victor Glover. Now, finally, you actually get to the men. The question I asked was, who's the most powerful black men? And this is the list that they give me. They have to put women into it. Notice that. Just notice that. This is the bullshit that they're doing. So anyway, keep going. Keep going. Amanda Gorman, okay. Who else? Raphael Warnock. Rashida Jones. Sandra Lindsay. Nicholas Johnson. Okay. Cynthia Sint Marshall. Okay. Yeah. Cori Bush. Notice how the majority of people on here are women. Just notice that. Alicia Bowler Davis. Okay. Now, Noah Harris. He's the first black man to be student body president. I don't really consider that being a powerful black man in the world. I really don't. Melody Hobson. And let me just describe how I talk about power. At one point, Barack Obama technically would have been the most powerful black man in the world because anytime you've got a guy walking around following you and he has a suitcase with nuclear codes in it so that all I got to do is push a couple of buttons and I can make an entire country disappear. As far as I'm concerned, that's power. But notice who they don't celebrate. Notice who they don't celebrate. Who they don't celebrate is the Supreme Court Justice for life, Clarence Thomas. Let me tell you something real quick. And Sidney Barbara, not to take away from these last couple of people on this list, Jesse Collins. Let me tell you something. What these liberals, these pathetic, stupid liberals, what they hate more than anything is the Constitution. They hate it. And they have plenty of reasons why they hate it. But let me say that the one thing, and I've said this before, they want to impose ad hoc law on this country. They want to, any fucking lunatic shit that they come up with, they just want to put it through. And they want to be, oh yeah, well, you have no choice but to do it. Here's the thing, though. The Constitution is pretty goddamn specific. The First Amendment says that we have freedom of speech. Congress shall make no law. So that means that they can't even pass laws abridging your freedom of speech. They can't. The second law, on the Second Amendment, I should say, but the second one, freedom to bear arms, or right to bear arms in its own text. They want to try, oh, but there should have been a comma, and there should have been a period, and there should have been a semicolon. I can go right down the block right now. I could go buy me a shotgun if I choose to. In fact, that waiting period on buying pistols is pretty much over, because when I bought my last pistol, all I had to do was buy the gun, go down to the NYPD precinct, have them put a stamp on my card, and then I just drive right back to the gun store and pick the gun up. And that was it. So even though they made me wait a long time to get the pistol permit, the reality was when I wanted to buy a gun, I could walk into the store and I was able to buy an AR-15, I could buy a shotgun, boom, right there over the counter. And this is New York State, mind you. They have no right to protect people's feelings over your right to bear arms. Period. I don't give a shit what you say. It's kind of like God giving scorpions stingers. A scorpion is a pretty ill-tempered animal, right? You don't have a right to take his stinger away from him. His stinger is actually there because, number one, he has to protect himself. Number two, he needs to eat. So it's kind of like animals that have big, sharp teeth. I'm sure there's a lot of people who would like to take their teeth out and make it so that they're domesticated. You can't do that shit. These animals need them teeth. Number one, for defense, and number two, to eat. Your feelings are relevant. The Constitution is pretty much sound. And I know there's a lot of people want to argue. I don't give a fuck. You can argue with the wall. You can look at the wall and you can start, yeah, well, there should have been a period and there should have been a comma. And I want you to stare at that wall, and that wall is going to tell you exactly what I'm telling you. It's going to look back at you. It's like, yeah, you stupid. So anyway, you have to understand, the Constitution was made in a way to protect individual liberties. Now, the people who came up with the Constitution, oh yeah, they were slaveholders. If it wasn't for the Constitution, there would have been no way to actually abolish slavery. But ultimately, they did. So, you know what? You can keep up with that argument, but as far as I'm concerned, it don't fly. Furthermore, the reality of the situation is the Constitution takes rights away from the government. That's the most important thing to remember. The first three amendments, what do they say? The Congress shall make no law. Number two, you have a right to arm yourself. Number three, they can't put troops in your house. Look at what they're doing right here in New York. They're trying to figure out ways to put homeless people and illegal aliens in people's houses. Now, granted, it says troops, but the bottom line is government can't do that because that's walking all over your rights. It's important to remember that the Constitution takes rights from the government. That's what the Bill of Rights is for. These fucking liberals want to make it so government has the power over you and you don't have individual liberties. That's what they want to do. So the reality is they're not doing a very good job of it. Because obviously, and I'm going to get to that in a second, in the last couple of days, in fact, I should say over the last couple of years, the Supreme Court, which is funny because they actually ruled in ways that I expected that they should have ruled many, many years ago. And they're striking down unconstitutional laws, unconstitutional provisions, and whether you like it or not, those laws were unconstitutional and they're gone, period. There is no right to abortion. You can't point out anywhere in the Constitution where the word abortion's even used. There is no right to abortion, period. Now, you could try to argue that, oh yeah, the states have a right to decide, which states have and which states don't based on the 9th and 10th Amendment, which basically kicks rights back to the states or the individual, which, is you and me. Okay, fine. You could try to make that argument, but they ain't no right to abortion, period. Now, if you live in a state and everybody says, oh, yeah, well, you know what? If women want to rip their babies out, that's fine. Congratulations. Okay, fine. You go live in that state. However, I don't want a single dime of my money going to pay for it. Now, the first thing somebody's going to try to do is argue, oh, yeah, well, the Hyde Amendment said the Hyde Clause, it said that you can't take federal money. And what they did is they changed it and they called it women's health. So, yeah, it doesn't say abortion, but what it says is women's health. No, first of all, let me just say, I want to be very clear. I'll take the last dime of my money and I'll hand it over to SRT for Brembo brake calipers before I will pay for your whorishness. Period. Number two, I would allow the Defense Department to take my money and use it on the tail fin of a cruise missile before I will pay for your whorishness. Period. If you want to do this, you do it. But that's between you and whatever God you serve. It's got nothing to do with me, and it's got nothing to do with my wallet. These people, understand, this is what I'm going to stop at this point. I'm going to go on to the stories. These people are forever trying to figure out ways to get in your pocket. Taxes is the easiest way because the government enforces taxes. So if they can raise taxes and they can steal from you, they can always have the government enforce it by sending the IRS agents after you. And if you don't pay your taxes, they throw you in the booty house. You ever been to the booty house? You don't want to be to the booty house. I've never been to the booty house. I pay my taxes early to avoid the booty house. I'll just say it like that. My thing is, I don't like the idea of my taxes being raised because you want to pay for your bullshit special interest projects and stuff. And granted, I have problems with the Defense Department too. I think the F-35 was a waste of money. I think the F-22 was a waste of money. I think this Ukraine war, and this is the last thing I'll say, I think this Ukraine war is the telling fact that in a pinch, you can't simply give your allies weapons because either they're too technologically advanced or they're too expensive. So here you are, you've got a fleet of fighters that you can't even sell these people. And even if you did, it's not going to end the war simply because the Russians got them S-400 missile defense systems. And basically, if you try to take off an F-35 and fly anywhere near Russia, you're gonna suddenly see it's going to be like, "Hi, I'm the S-400. Nice to meet you." Boom! So they're losing this war, and yet they're still figuring out ways to take more of my tax money and your tax money and hand it over there. When we're talking about high-speed rail, we ain't got money for high-speed rail. You know why? Because we handing off our money to a losing war. So that's where I am. So anyway, let's get back into the story. They refuse to celebrate this man, Clarence Thomas. Now, I'm a celebrator. I don't care about you at all. If you don't want to celebrate, that's fantastic. Bottom line is, I'm making the case, Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Clarence Thomas, Justice Clarence Thomas, is the most powerful black man in the world. Not Obama. He's a former president. I'm making the case that Clarence Thomas is the most powerful black man in the entire earth, the entire world. Okay, hold on. Okay, I'm going to try to make this quick. So, just breaking news, June 30th, 2023, 10:39 a.m. The Supreme Court rejects Biden's plan to wipe away $400 billion in student loan debt relief. Or I should say student loan debt, but he called it relief, so whatever. Let's see. A sharply divided Supreme Court on Friday effectively killed Biden's $400 billion plan to cancel or reduce federal student loan debts. 6-3 decision. Now keep that number in mind because that was exactly the number from yesterday when they supposedly struck down affirmative action in college hiring. So not hiring, college recruitment's not the best word, but I guess college, there was a word that they used for it, college acceptance. So anyway, and recruitment might actually be a good word for it because some of these schools actively recruit people to come to the college. Like if you're really good at football or basketball, they look for you and then they scout you and then they recruit you. So recruit could be used as a good word. But anyway, whatever. It says the 6-3 decision with conservative justices in the majority said the Biden administration overstepped its authority, its constitutional authority, with the plan. And it leaves borrowers on the hook for repayments that are expected to resume in the fall. Let me tell you something. And I've said this 100 times because I've showed you I had to have 3 jobs, individual jobs, and I had to apply 100% of the money that I was making from 2 of them in order to pay off my student loans. I paid my student loans 10 years early. Now, would I have been able to do that if I had willy-nilly gone to some party school and been on some party school campus and was driving up debt willy-nilly and not even thinking about it? Because let me tell you something, and I've told this little story before. Originally, when it was time to go to college, I was a lazy-minded student. I didn't think about what college I was going to. I did a college tour, and basically, when you go on the college tour, especially when you look at the HSBCs, you graduate. You graduate thinking, okay, yeah, I want to go to college, but the problem is when you go on these college tours, you gravitate towards the colleges that look like malls and that look like parties. And that's the reality. I originally had thought, oh, yeah, I want to go to Morgan State University. Morgan State University is down there in Baltimore, right? I think Howard is near it. There's a couple other schools near it. And the thing about it is, I wasn't thinking about the fact that if I sign up for this school, it's going to cost me between $10,000 and $30,000 a year to be down there in Baltimore. Because here's the problem: I had no job, I had no dorm. They had a 4-to-1 female to male ratio. And that just goes to show you that women don't care about signing up for debt. They don't care. They'll go get a MD, a PhD, a DD, a DD, ED, whatever. They don't care. We've been living in 0% interest rates for so long that it's made people not care when they sign up for debt. But guess what? Those days have pretty much come to a very swift end. You can't, your boss babes, right? The boss babes with the Range Rovers and the Bentley, the boss babes, they ain't buying that stuff no more. They can't because they can't afford it. The interest rates are so high. They walk into one of these dealerships. Oh, you're interested in this Jaguar F-Pace? You're interested in this Range Rover? Yeah, well, the answer is no. You can't afford it. The monthly payments are going to be twice what you expected they were going to be because we're no longer at 3% interest. Now it's 6% interest. And they just tell you no. And they're like, well, listen, if you want to pay extra for it, go ahead. But if you can't, then, just get out. And that's it. End of conversation. So the Federal Reserve, which is pretty much who to blame for the interest rates having to be where they are since they printed all of that welfare money during COVID. The reality is these women sign up for debt and they don't care. They'll oh, yeah, the Lord will make a way for me. The Lord will make a way somehow. The Lord will make a way. Lord will make a way somehow. And they're clapping and singing and everything. And I'm pretty sure that most men are sitting back like, wait a minute. You're signing up for a promissory note that tells you that you're going to have to pay back damn near $100,000 in just loans. Oh, yeah, well, by then I'll be making so much money, I'll be able to pay it. Don't you worry about it. I'm a boss babe. Well, guess what? Biden's plan was struck down. Now, these women have been praying to Biden all this time. Oh, yeah, don't worry, Joe Biden, go ahead with Joe. Cardi B and them, they up there twerking. And, oh, yeah, don't everybody elect Joe Biden. He's going to take care of it. Supreme Court just struck that down. Just like that, with the gavel. Boom. Struck it down. Who they praying to now? Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and render unto me what is mine. So anyway, I don't even have to read this whole story because this is like an ongoing, developing story. But I knew this was coming. The government has no right to interfere with private contracts. And this is how I don't know how they ruled it because I haven't read it yet. I'm reading it right now. But they have no right to interfere with private contracts. When I signed those loans, I knew that, yeah, I'm going to have to pay those loans back. So I know, okay, I got to get a reasonable job. I have to work, and I got to pay them loans back. Those loans were deferred until you graduate, but shortly after you graduate, you got to pay them loans back. These people have been sitting around for 2 and 3 years, knowing that eventually this day was going to come. Joe Biden won his election by bribing the country. Oh, yeah, don't worry. We got student loan forgiveness. Okay, you know what? That's not how he talks. He's like, come on, man. We got student loan forgiveness, man. Come on. You got to vote for me instead of that maniac, that maniac Trump. You got to vote for me. Come on, man. And people voted for him because they thought that, he was going to, they thought he was going to somehow put a dent in this. And it didn't happen, did it? I saw this coming. Government cannot interfere in private contracts. As long as the contracts are reasonable and conscionable, it's not like you're signing your soul away or some shit. As long as it's conscionable, the government has no right to interfere in private contracts. Your promissory note was between you and the lender. So they would have ultimately been putting the lender on the hook, just like what they did here in New York, where they told people, oh, you don't have to pay rent. Now they're handing out these stimulus checks and telling people you don't have to pay rent. So these people, what they do, they ran out and bought PlayStation 5, Bitcoin, fucking wasted all that goddamn stimulus money. And now you're paying the price for it because they had to raise interest rates over at the Federal Reserve as the national debt skyrockets past $30 trillion to $31 trillion. And it'll eventually be 32. It's inevitable. And they thought that they could get away with this shit. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wait a minute, when is this Supreme Court going to rule that this is unconstitutional? It's just like Obamacare. Obamacare is unconstitutional. There is no right to health care. By saying there's a right to health care, you're basically saying that the medical professionals are slaves. Who's going to slave over you because you think that you got a right to something? It's just like these people marching right now. Oh, yeah, we got a right to have a house. You got no fucking right to have no house. Show me that in the Constitution. There ain't no right to hold no house. You can work for it. You can save up money for it. You can sacrifice and work and save and this, that, and the other for it. There ain't no goddamn right to have no fucking house. There's no right to have an apartment. You got to work for that. Who's paying for this? You are. You can't make people slaves. The landlord is not your slave. The homeowner is not your slave. You don't have a right to that shit. I don't know where these people got this idea from, but this is what happens when you have this unchecked liberalism. And guess what? Now it got checked. And now they don't know what to do. He told us no. He told us no. He struck it down. Yeah, that's right. He told you no. And now there's nothing you can do about it. You can't even vote your way out of this because it would take too long. The Supreme Court, these people who are sitting on the Supreme Court right now, they're going to be replaced most likely by people who are going to vote like the same way. And the reasonable thing to understand is they're supposed to vote with the Constitution. Now, if you want to change the Constitution, you're going to have a constitutional convention. You can't just willy-nilly make up bullshit laws. I'm talking to these governors. I'm talking to these mayors. And you're doing a shit job. Your states are drowning in crime. So anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, you want to have a constitutional convention? Go ahead. What is it? 3/4 of the House, 3/4 of the Senate, and 2/3 of the states? Yeah, have a constitutional convention. If you want to try to put this stuff on the books, do it. Do it the legal way. Do it the constitutional way. But other than that, just rabble rousing and marching and shit, you ain't getting nothing done, and you will continue to watch the same thing repeat in cycles simply because you get nothing done. Every unconstitutional law will be struck down. Okay, so I think they probably mentioned the affirmative action thing from yesterday. I could go to that one too. Where is it? Legal challenges, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but anyway, the Supreme Court's kicking ass right now. They're kicking ass. And these people don't know what to say. They don't know what to say. Let's see. What is this? Biden administration, Supreme Court. Yeah, the Supreme Court's big in the news. This is Indiana Supreme Court upholds abortion ban, says state constitution gives only limited protections. 6-3 decision effectively kills Biden's $400 billion plan. Supreme Court rules for a designer who doesn't want to make wedding websites for gay couples. Now, here's the thing. If you're not receiving public money and you don't have to adhere to Title IX, you can do whatever you want. The reasonable thing to understand is that if you choose not to work under contract, which is, again, this is the 14th Amendment. If you choose not to work for somebody because you don't like their skin color or their race, creed, color, religion, whatever the hell it is, right? You're losing money. And that's your problem. If you choose not to serve someone, if you choose not to work for them, you're losing money. Now, I know some people don't care, but I've noticed that there's a lot of groups that really don't care. It's like if I go to Flushing right now, there's a lot of stores where the stores are only in one language and it's a foreign language. That's basically telling me you don't care about my money one way or another. That's basically telling me you don't need me. Okay, fine, then I'll find somebody else. At the end of the day, there's more money on the table. You can't force somebody to make cakes for you. You can't force somebody to make clothing for you. You can't force somebody to, they're not slaves, period. That's the 14th Amendment. But I understand a lot of you have never had civics before, so you don't know shit about the Constitution, despite the fact that it's right there. You can pull it up on your phone, you can pull it up on your computer, you can pull it up on your laptop. You don't do that, and then you want to blame everybody. Oh, yeah, well, they said this took away African American studies. You got a goddamn cell phone on you right now. You want to learn about African American history? Go on there and learn about it. You could autodidact, teach yourself. You want to learn about Africa? Learn about it. There's nothing stopping me right now from going on here, and I could type up Africa, history of Zimbabwe. I just made up Zimbabwe, and I can learn about Zimbabwe's history. There ain't nothing stopping you. You know what's stopping you? You're playing video games, and you're bullshitting. Probably watching porno. I don't know what you're doing, but you're not doing it because you're not doing it. Don't blame somebody else for taking away or not having information available that you have available. Don't blame nobody. Stop with the excuses. Just stop. So anyway, where are we? You can't force these people to make you, what is this, wedding websites. See, before it was a cake. You can't force these people to do this stuff for you. You can't. It's unconstitutional. You can't force anybody to do anything. Oh, you can't do this. You're taking it backwards. We're going backwards in time. We're going backwards in time. It's like back. What is it? Back to the Future. Want to go back in time. Gonna go back in time. Yeah, that's all y'all do is complain. That's why you're getting your asses kicked. Okay, let's go back. Back in time. We're gonna go back in time. Let's see. Biden talks Supreme Court and Russia, but also media and McCain in rare. Who cares about that? Anyway, something about Putin. My screen is a little wet from spittle, so it's like it's not responding properly. What is this? And then, the last thing I'll say is about this affirmative action thing. Me personally, from the time I learned about affirmative action, I was like, wait a minute. I understand that the government is basically trying to affirm that they fucked up and that they're trying to give African Americans a stepping stone, but understand something. And we all know it to be true. Affirmative action, and I'm a black male, affirmative action has never done shit for me. Everything I ever signed up for, I got because either my first couple of jobs, Clinton, under his administration, we had very low unemployment. Anybody who wanted a job could get a job. If you come into that job and you have a decent suit on or whatever, and you're coming into a job interview, usually decent, for the most part, depending upon what the job is, if you have the skills to get it, chances are you'll probably get it. We are currently living in, what is that called? The gig economy where anybody can work. Government has done nothing but uphold segregation. By keeping taxes high, they've segregated neighborhoods. By keeping those neighborhoods segregated, they've had segregated schools. Even though it's not de jure segregation by law, it's de facto segregation. Because nobody who'd want to go to these places who sees this bright, lily white, beautiful place, you wouldn't be able to afford to be around there. And I've said this before. It's also the reason why you see so many of these Karens getting in trouble when they call the cops on black families and black people in certain areas where they feel they don't belong. When you rent out Airbnb, that's a private contract between you and the person who owns that property. These people who live in these segregated communities never expected to see you there. And now that you did this private contract with these other people, they had no idea you were going to be there. So the first thing they do is start harassing you. They thought that they could uphold this segregation. But as government welfare is torn down step by step, you are losing. I love it. I love watching this shit burn down. I fucking love it. I'm waiting for the next Supreme Court decision. Tear it down. Burn it down. I love it. I love it. which is why I celebrate Clarence Thomas. Because the thing about it is, with all those other white people in that jury, the reality is they're pointing at him. Overseas, all these people overseas in these other countries, and they're hearing about this breaking news. When they look and they see the news, who are they pointing the finger at? They're pointing the finger at Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas is the most powerful black man in the world. He's single-handedly burning down the liberal establishment. I wish it could be me, but I don't have the stomach to go to law school. I don't feel like doing any law. I don't feel like taking no bar. I don't feel like doing any of that shit. Me personally, I got a couple of years left. I'm going to retire. I'm going to be on a beach with a wife half my age from a foreign country, serving me buko juice, giving me rub downs with coconut oil. And that's all. I have no aspirations whatsoever. I have none. I have none at all. I just want to take my money and leave. And that's it. Now, some people are like, oh, yeah, well, you got to get a job. You got to keep working. No, I fucking don't. No, I don't. No. No. You keep working. You stay right here and you stay on the plantation. You keep working. I ain't doing it. I'm not doing it. But that's the reality of the situation. They got affirmative action. I always believed that was... I understand why the government did it, but the reality is affirmative action didn't help black males. Affirmative action has helped women, white women specifically, and now foreigners. Just because somebody has black skin, that don't mean that they ADOS black or African descendants of slavery. No, some of these people don't know shit about slavery. Some of these people coming from Africa right now and taking jobs just because of their skin color, because they have a quota that needs to be met. Oh, yeah, we got to hire a certain number of blacks. We got to hire a certain number of gays and everything. Affirmative action ain't done shit for me. I've had positions that I could have possibly gotten by asking family members for them, and I didn't even bother asking because I didn't want it that bad. I was like, listen, if I get it, I'm going to work for it myself. And furthermore, getting rid of affirmative action, you know what another thing is? Nobody will ever be able to point and say, yeah, you only got that job because of affirmative action. It's just like my cars. People see my cars. And they're like, wow, those are really nice cars and everything. Nobody will ever accuse me of getting it through affirmative action. They'll be like, oh, well, you must have a job. You must be working. We're like, oh, if you don't mind me asking, what do you do for a living? I work, motherfucker. That's what I get all the time. Oh, if you don't mind me asking, what do you do for a living? I hear it's like Mr. Spock asking that shit because they get that low tone. If you don't mind my asking, what do you do for a living? I work, motherfucker. That's what I do for a living. It's like, what do you think I do? You think I sling crack rock because I didn't have a wicked jump shot? Goodbye affirmative action. Goodbye abortion. Goodbye student loan debt relief. Y'all are going to work for every fucking dime you get. Every dime. No, I keep telling the story about the eagles. When those eagles have their baby eaglets, they create a nice soft nest. And they birth those eaglets, and then they feed them. But eventually, those baby eagles start getting big for that nest. And the eagles look at themselves. They're like, you know what? It's time to get these motherfuckers out of here, because they have to go out into the world. And they have to be the next bald eagle. They can't stay here. So what do? They take all the soft feathers out of the nest, and it gets real uncomfortable. So the baby eagles are turning on their side, and they're like, oh, shit, there's fucking spikes in here. I can't get comfortable. Next thing you know, the eagles, what they do is they stop feeding them. And that, because you know how the eagles swoop down, and they be killing animals, and they bring it back to the nest, and they feed the eagles, the eaglets. Well, what they do is they stop feeding them. That's what they do. I call it removal of the welfare state, removal of the safety net. Eagles stop feeding them, make it real uncomfortable. They stop protecting them. And they're like, yeah, you know what? It's time for that hard talk between parents and child. It's time for you to get the fuck out. And it's just that simple. Nowadays, you got grown-ass millennials living in their parents' house at 40. Some of them even at 50. When are you going to go out and be an eagle? I guess you don't want to, but it's not your choice anymore. It's time to go out and be an eagle. That's what it is. It's time to go out and be an eagle. The safety net. Last thing I'm going to say. When you go to the circus, one thing you'll notice is the performers perform a hell of a lot better when there's no safety net there. When they know that the wages of falling off that tightrope is death, oh, they perform a hell of a lot better. Oh, yeah, death defying. That's what they call it, death defying. It's time to take the safety nets away. You're going to work for whatever you get. If you raise up lots of debts because you're out there shopping and buying Louis Vuitton and Gucci and Yeezy and all that bullshit, well, guess what? You better sacrifice somewhere else because you're going to pay for it. Nobody else going to pay for your bullshit. Nobody. Nobody. The welfare state's coming to an end. 31 trillion in debt soon. Welfare state's coming to an end. Mark my words, it's coming to an end. The high interest rate. Jerome Powell is about to raise interest rates again. They're already at 5.25. He's going to keep going. He has no choice. You can't fight inflation unless the interest rates are as high as the inflation. So if the inflation's at 10%, your interest rates have to be 10%. Anything less is not fighting inflation. We don't even know what the true interest rate is because the government and the media lie. They lie directly to your face. But the mere fact that he's still raising them tells you that they're higher than they're telling you that they are. So guess what? It's over. It is over. So get your shit together. Stop fucking around. Stop messing up in school. Stop cutting school, cutting class. Stop walking into job interviews with your pants below your ass. With those raptor claws and that fake hair. Stop going into these job interviews with the bonnet on your head. Stop going in there with your blue-colored purple hair thinking that just because, oh, yes, I'm unique, I'm different. Just because you think that because you're just going to get the job because of that? Nah, I don't think so. You're going to work for this shit. And that's all. That's all. Clarence Thomas. Back to Clarence Thomas. I didn't talk enough about him. Clarence Thomas is the most powerful black man in the entire world. They used to call him the HNIC. They used to be the term from the movie Lean On Me. The head nigga in charge. The most powerful black man in the entire world just ruled. Hey, Biden, your plan ain't constitutional. And that's it. Bang, bang, bang with the gavel. That's it. Biden got on TV. Oh, this isn't the normal Supreme Court. Come on, man. Come on, man. This isn't normal. Yeah, okay. Yeah, your plan was unconstitutional, and that's it. Therefore, you can't do it. Otherwise, you run the risk of being impeached. And that's it. Isn't it amazing how the law works? I love it. Now, I would never practice law because I would probably be the most horrific prosecutor ever. Like, they would call me the hangman or some shit. But at this point, I'm just lazy. At this point, I'm planning to retire. I'm going to be on a beach, sipping buko juice, being brought to me by a chick half my age, rubbing me down with the coconut oil. And that's it. I have no aspirations. That's it. That's it. So that said, they don't celebrate this man. But I celebrate this man because he's ruling exactly. The Constitution was designed to promote individual liberty. The Constitution was designed to promote freedom of choice. And now a lot of people don't like seeing other people have those freedoms and they don't like seeing people have that personal responsibility and that freedom. They don't like it. But nobody cares what you like. Whatever your problem is with it, that you could take that shit and throw it out the window. Nobody cares. But the bottom line is, it's like you will not live unconstitutional laws. You will not pass them. You will not sustain them. It's over. And I don't know what the next ruling is going to be, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty awesome because it's about time. I can't believe it took this long, but it's about time. So therefore, once again, I say Clarence Thomas, you can't think anybody more powerful right now. You can't. This guy is the Supreme Court justice. Now, granted, there are other justices on that bench who ruled the same way. Of course, there were 3 of them who didn't. What was it? Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown and what was the other one? Kagan, I believe. Yeah, they ruled the opposite way, but Supreme Court Justice Thomas, he said, nah, this is unconstitutional. deal with it.